There will come a moment in your life when everything familiar burns away, when the plans fail, the people disappear, the door you kept knocking on never opens, and you realize you are standing alone in the fire you never asked for. This is the place most people beg to escape, the place they call hell. But what if this fire isn't here to destroy you? What if it's here to introduce you to the strongest version of yourself you have never met? Because going through hell does something comfort never could. It strips away illusions, exposes your raw truth, and forces you to decide who you are when nothing is left to hold on to. And in that moment, when the pain is loud and the path is dark, you will discover a power inside you that doesn't need applause, doesn't need permission, and doesn't need rescue. Only the decision to keep walking forward, one step at a time, through the flames. Hell is not a place you arrive at because you are weak. It is a place you are sent because there is strength in you that has not been tested yet. Nobody volunteers for these moments. Nobody wakes up and asks for loss, betrayal, failure, or the kind of silence that makes you question your own worth. But when it comes without permission. And suddenly, you are faced with two choices: let it bury you or let it build you. What feels like destruction is often construction happening in the dark. Because comfort never forged resilience, and easy paths never created dangerous people. The fire you are in right now is not random. It is refining you, burning away the parts of you that depended on approval, certainty, and guarantees. When you are going through hell, the rules change. You learn quickly that motivation is fragile, feelings are unreliable, and hope alone is not a strategy. What carries you through is discipline, the decision to stand up when your mind begs you to stay down, to move forward when every step feels heavy, to keep your standards high even when your circumstances are low. This is where you stop negotiating with pain and start commanding your response to it. You begin to understand that strength is not loud. It does not announce itself. It is quiet, controlled, and relentless. It is choosing not to quit in moments when quitting would be completely justified. Hell also exposes truth. It shows you who disappears when you have nothing to offer, who you were pretending to be, and what actually matters when everything else is stripped away. The illusions fall first, the belief that life will be fair, that people will always stay, that effort guarantees reward. What remains is something far more powerful: clarity. You stop chasing validation and start building substance. You stop asking why this is happening to you and start asking what this is preparing you for. And that question changes everything, because now you are no longer a victim of the fire. You are a student of it. One day, without realizing when it happened, you will notice that the same things that once broke you no longer shake you. The chaos that used to overwhelm you now sharpens your focus. The fear that once controlled you now fuels you. You will walk differently, speak differently, carry yourself with a quiet certainty that cannot be taught, only earned. And people will look at you and see strength, but they will never fully understand the price you paid for it. Because hell does not just test you, it trains you. It prepares you for battles you cannot see yet, for responsibilities you are not ready to carry yet, for a version of your life that requires a version of you that does not exist yet. So if you are in that fire right now, stop asking when it will end and start asking who you are becoming because of it. This is not where your story finishes. This is where you are being shaped into someone who can walk into storms without flinching, into uncertainty without fear, into pressure without breaking. Hell is not your ending. It is the place where the weak parts of you are left behind and the unbreakable parts step forward. And when you finally walk out of it, you will not just be someone who survived, you will be someone who is ready. Pressure has a way of stripping away every mask you have ever worn. When everything is calm, anyone can appear confident, kind, disciplined, and in control. But pressure doesn't care about appearances. It exposes reality. It reveals how you think when time is running out, how you act when fear is loud, how steady you remain when everything around you is shaking. This is where character is not claimed but demonstrated, because who you truly are is not defined by your words when life is easy, but by your decisions when the stakes are high and there is no room left to pretend. In those intense moments, you meet parts of yourself you didn't know existed. You discover whether you run from discomfort or move toward it, whether you collapse under doubt or stand despite it. Pressure forces honesty. It shows you the gaps in your discipline, the cracks in your confidence, the habits that quietly weaken you. But it also reveals your hidden strengths, the resilience you built in silence, the courage you thought you didn't have, the ability to stay calm while others panic. This is why pressure is not your enemy. It is a mirror. It shows you both the work you still need to do and the power you already possess. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pressure, not realizing that avoidance keeps them fragile. They stay in environments where nothing is demanded of them, where excuses are easy and growth is optional. But strength requires resistance. Just as muscles grow by being challenged, your mind and character expand when they are tested. Pressure forces you to adapt, to sharpen your focus, to raise your standards. It pushes you beyond autopilot and into intentional action. And once you learn to function under it, you carry a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken by ordinary problems. There is also a moment under pressure when something shifts inside you, when panic gives way to clarity. You stop wasting energy on what you cannot control and lock in on what you can. Your breathing steadies. Your thoughts become precise. Your movements deliberate. This is the point where you are no longer reacting. You are leading yourself through the chaos. You realize that pressure only controls you if you surrender your mind to it. If you stay composed, it becomes fuel instead of force, sharpening your instincts instead of scattering them. When the pressure finally lifts, you are not the same person who walked in. You carry proof of what you can handle. Situations that once intimidated you now feel manageable. Opinions that once shook you lose their weight. You trust yourself more because you have seen what you are capable of when it mattered most. Pressure didn't break you, it introduced you to your real identity. Not the comfortable version, not the polished version, but the resilient, focused, unshakable one. And once you know that person exists within you, you stop fearing difficult moments, because you understand that pressure is not there to crush you. It is there to reveal you. You don't break in hell the way you think you will. You go in believing the pain will shatter you, that one more hit, one more loss, one more sleepless night will be the thing that finally finishes you. But something unexpected happens in that darkness. You discover that your limits were never where you thought they were. The mind that once panicked begins to steady. The heart that once felt fragile starts to harden in the right places. You realize that breaking is not a single moment. It is a decision. And as long as you keep choosing to stand, to breathe, to move, you are still in the fight. Hell doesn't end you. It tests how much of you is real. At first, survival feels messy. You question yourself constantly. You replay mistakes, wonder if you could have avoided the fall, if you were too naive, too trusting, too slow to see what was coming. But over time, the noise fades. You stop wasting energy on questions that have no answers and start focusing on what is directly in front of you. This is where resilience is built, not in grand victories, but in quiet persistence. Getting up when nobody is watching, holding your ground when nobody is applauding, keeping your word to yourself when it would be easier to abandon it. These small acts stack up until one day you realize you are no longer barely holding on. You are standing with intention. Pain changes its role when you stop resisting it. Instead of something that is happening to you, it becomes something that is shaping you. You begin to see patterns, lessons, warnings you missed before. Your tolerance grows. Things that once felt unbearable become manageable, then ordinary, then irrelevant. This is how you become unbreakable, not because life stops hitting you, but because you stop collapsing every time it does. You adapt, you adjust, you learn where to be flexible and where to be firm. You become harder to intimidate, harder to manipulate, harder to discourage because you have already faced worse and kept moving. There is also a quiet confidence that forms when you walk through suffering without losing yourself. You learn that strength is not about becoming cold or emotionless. It is about remaining steady without shutting down your humanity. You can feel deeply without drowning. You can care without losing your boundaries. You can face uncertainty without needing constant reassurance. This balance is what makes you dangerous in the best way, grounded, aware, and no longer desperate for comfort at the expense of growth. When you finally step out of that fire, people may see calm on your surface, but underneath is steel. You don't panic the same way. You don't chase the same things. You don't fear starting over because you know you can survive it. Hell gave you proof, not just belief. It showed you that you can endure more than you imagined, rebuild more than you lost, and walk forward without needing guarantees. You didn't become unbreakable because life got easier. You became unbreakable because you learned that even at your lowest, even in the darkest stretch of the road, there was still something inside you that refused to quit. And that is something no fire can destroy. Fear has a voice that never seems to get tired. It whispers worst-case scenarios when you try to sleep, shouts doubts when you try to move forward, and repeats every past failure as if it is proof that you should stop. It is convincing because it speaks in the language of survival, making you believe that staying small is the safest option. But fear is not a guide. It is a warning system that was never meant to control your entire life. If you listen to it without question, it will shrink your world until you are living inside a cage you built with your own hesitation. The tragedy is not that fear exists. It is that too many people let it make their decisions for them. Purpose speaks differently. It is not frantic or panicked. It is steady, grounded, and patient. It reminds you why you started when motivation fades, why the struggle matters when results are slow, why the pain is worth enduring when quitting would be easier. Purpose does not promise comfort. It promises meaning. And meaning is what gives you the strength to walk into situations that scare you, to have conversations you would rather avoid, to take risks that could expose you to failure. When your purpose is clear, fear does not disappear, but it loses authority. It becomes background noise instead of a command. There will be moments when the two voices collide, when fear tells you to retreat and purpose tells you to advance. This is where identity is decided, because courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision that something else matters more. You step forward while your hands shake. You speak while your voice feels unsteady. You act while uncertainty surrounds you. Each time you do this, you weaken fear's grip and strengthen your trust in yourself. You start to understand that fear grows when you obey it and shrinks when you confront it. What makes purpose powerful is that it pulls you out of yourself. Fear is obsessed with you, your safety, your reputation, your comfort. Purpose focuses on what you are here to do, who you are here to become, and sometimes who you are here to help. It shifts your attention from "what if I fail" to "what happens if I never try?" That question carries weight because it forces you to confront the cost of inaction, the life that will never exist if you keep choosing safety over growth. And once you see that clearly, standing still becomes more frightening than moving forward. Over time, as you keep choosing purpose, you build a different kind of confidence, not the loud kind that needs attention, but the quiet kind that comes from alignment. You know what you stand for. You know what you are willing to endure. You know where you are going, even if you cannot see the entire path yet. Fear may still speak, but it no longer decides. Your actions become guided by intention rather than impulse, by vision rather than doubt. One day you will look back and realize that fear was never the enemy you thought it was. It was the test that forced you to define your purpose with clarity. Because when your reason for moving forward becomes stronger than your reasons for staying back, you become unstoppable in a way that has nothing to do with arrogance and everything to do with conviction. Fear will always be loud, but it cannot compete with a purpose that you have chosen, protected, and pursued, no matter how uncomfortable the journey becomes. Motivation is unreliable. It shows up when things are new, when energy is high, when the vision feels exciting and the outcome feels close. But the moment reality gets heavy, when progress slows, when results disappear, when exhaustion replaces enthusiasm, motivation fades without apology. If your survival depends on feeling inspired, you will always be at the mercy of circumstances you cannot control, because hard days don't care how you feel, and difficult seasons don't pause until you feel ready. This is why discipline becomes the lifeline. It does not ask for your mood, your confidence, or your emotional state. It only asks for your decision. Discipline is choosing to act even when every part of you resists. It is getting up when sleep feels safer, focusing when distractions feel comforting, continuing when quitting feels justified. It is not loud or dramatic. Most of the time, it is repetitive and invisible, small actions done consistently without applause. But these small actions are what carry you through chaos. When your mind is overwhelmed and your emotions are unstable, discipline gives you structure. It tells you what to do next so you don't drown in overthinking. It turns survival from something uncertain into something methodical. One task, one step, one controlled breath at a time. In the middle of hardship, discipline also protects you from your own impulses. Pain can push people toward self-destruction, toward choices that numb the moment but damage the future. Discipline interrupts that pattern. It forces you to maintain standards when lowering them would be easier. It reminds you that who you become during difficult times will follow you long after the difficulty is gone. This is where integrity is forged, not when life is convenient, but when doing the right thing costs you comfort. You begin to trust yourself because you see that you can rely on your actions, not just your intentions. There is a quiet strength that comes from knowing you can function without motivation. You stop waiting for the perfect mindset and start working with whatever mindset you have. Some days you will feel confident, other days uncertain, other days completely drained. But your routine remains steady. This consistency builds momentum that feelings alone could never sustain. Over time, what once felt forced becomes automatic. The discipline that started as effort becomes identity. You are no longer someone trying to stay strong. You are someone who operates with strength as a baseline. Discipline also simplifies chaos. When everything around you feels unpredictable, your habits become anchors. They give you something stable to hold on to, proof that not everything is out of your control. Even on the worst days, you can still choose your actions. You can still show up, still prepare, still move forward in some way. That sense of control, however small, keeps hopelessness from taking over. It reminds you that survival is not about giant leaps, but about refusing to stop moving altogether. Eventually, you realize that discipline did more than help you endure. It transformed you. You become someone who does not depend on emotional highs to perform, someone who can be counted on in moments of pressure, someone who keeps going long after others have burned out. Motivation may have started your journey, but discipline is what carried you through the fire. And when you come out the other side, you don't just feel proud of what you achieved. You trust the person you became to achieve anything else that lies ahead. Pain has a way of demanding attention that comfort never will. It interrupts your routine, breaks your focus, and forces you to acknowledge what you would rather ignore. Most people instinctively try to silence it, distract themselves from it, or outrun it as quickly as possible. But pain is not just suffering for the sake of suffering. It is a signal. It points to something that needs to change, something that needs to heal, something that can no longer continue the way it was. When you stop treating pain as an enemy and start seeing it as information, you shift from being controlled by it to learning from it. Every form of pain carries a message. Physical pain tells you something in your body needs care. Emotional pain tells you something in your life is out of alignment. The frustration, the disappointment, the grief, they are not random punishments. They reveal where your expectations collided with reality, where your boundaries were too weak, where your trust was misplaced, or where you outgrew a version of yourself that can no longer carry you forward. Ignoring these messages does not make them disappear. It only delays the lesson until it returns louder and harder to avoid. Listening to pain requires honesty. It asks you to sit still long enough to understand what happened instead of rushing to numb the discomfort. It forces you to confront truths that are inconvenient, that you stayed somewhere too long, tolerated behavior you shouldn't have, or abandoned your own needs to keep the peace. These realizations can sting, but they also give you clarity. Once you understand the source, you gain the power to respond differently. Pain then becomes a teacher rather than a tormentor, guiding you towards stronger boundaries, wiser decisions, and deeper self-respect. There is also growth hidden inside endurance. When you survive something that once felt unbearable, your perspective changes. Problems that used to overwhelm you lose their intensity because you have evidence of your resilience. You become less reactive, more measured, more aware of what truly deserves your energy. Pain refines your priorities. It strips away trivial concerns and brings your attention to what is real and lasting. You stop chasing things that only look good on the surface and start investing in what has substance. Over time, the lessons compound. You begin to recognize patterns earlier, to sense when something is off before it escalates, to trust your instincts because they were sharpened by past mistakes. This awareness protects you. It does not make you cynical. It makes you prepared. You can still care deeply, still take risks, still open yourself to life, but you do so with wisdom instead of naivety. Pain taught you where the edges are, where the dangers hide, and where your strength truly lies. One day, you will realize that the experiences you once wished had never happened became the very things that shaped your depth, your empathy, and your discernment. They gave you a language to understand others who are struggling and a quiet confidence that no lesson is ever wasted if you choose to learn from it. Pain will never be comfortable, and it will never be something you seek, but it can become something valuable. When you listen carefully, it does more than hurt you. It prepares you, strengthens you, and ensures that the person you become is wiser than the person who walked into the fire. There is a harsh realization that comes at some point in life, and it changes you once you truly accept it. No one is coming to rescue you. No perfectly timed opportunity, no person who suddenly appears with all the answers, no moment where everything becomes easy because someone else took the weight off your shoulders. At first, this truth can feel isolating, even frightening. It strips away the comfort of waiting, the illusion that relief will arrive from the outside. But hidden inside that realization is something incredibly powerful, because if no one is coming to save you, it means your survival has always been in your own hands. Waiting can become a trap. You wait for approval before you act, for support before you try, for confidence before you move, for circumstances to improve before you commit. Meanwhile, time keeps moving without hesitation. When you stop waiting, you reclaim control. You start making decisions based on necessity rather than permission. You stop asking who will help you and start asking what you can do with what you already have. This shift is uncomfortable because responsibility is heavy, but it is also liberating because it puts direction back into your hands. Taking ownership does not mean you will never need others or that you must carry everything alone. It means you stop depending on external rescue as your primary strategy. You become resourceful. You learn skills instead of wishing problems away. You prepare instead of hoping circumstances will be kind. You build resilience instead of assuming someone stronger will step in when things go wrong. And with every challenge you handle yourself, your confidence grows. Not the fragile kind that comes from praise, but the solid kind that comes from evidence. There is also a quiet shift in how you see yourself. Instead of viewing your life as something happening to you, you begin to see it as something you are shaping. Obstacles stop feeling like unfair barriers and start looking like situations that require strategy. You become more deliberate with your time, more protective of your energy, more selective about what deserves your effort. The victim mindset fades because it no longer serves you. You understand that while you cannot control everything that happens, you can always control how prepared you are and how you respond. When you accept that no one is coming to save you, you also stop giving away your power. You no longer wait for validation to feel worthy or for reassurance to feel capable. You trust your judgment more because you are the one who has carried yourself this far. Even your failures become valuable because they belong to you. Proof that you acted, learned, and adapted instead of standing still. This ownership builds self-respect, the kind that cannot be taken from you because it was earned in moments when you had every reason to give up and chose not to. Eventually, what once felt like abandonment reveals itself as independence. You realize you were never meant to be rescued because you were meant to become someone who can endure, solve, rebuild, and lead yourself through uncertainty. And when help does come, because sometimes it will, you meet it as a partner, not as someone helpless without it. You stand stronger, not because life spared you, but because it forced you to discover that the strength you were searching for outside had been within you all along, waiting for the moment you decided to use it. Your mind can become your greatest weapon or your most dangerous enemy, depending on who is in control. When you are going through hell, the external chaos is only half the battle. The real fight happens internally, in the thoughts that repeat, the doubts that multiply, the memories that resurface at the worst possible moments. If you let your mind run unchecked, it will pull you deeper into fear, replay every mistake, exaggerate every threat, and convince you that there is no way out. Hell feeds on a mind that has surrendered, because once your thoughts are working against you, exhaustion follows quickly. Control begins with awareness. You start noticing the patterns, how quickly your thoughts jump to worst-case scenarios, how easily one setback turns into a story about permanent failure, how your inner voice can become harsher than any critic. When you observe without immediately believing everything you think, you create distance. That distance is power. It allows you to question the narrative instead of being dragged by it. Not every thought deserves your trust, especially in moments of pain when perception is distorted and emotions are high. Discipline over the mind is built the same way as discipline over the body: repetition. You redirect your focus again and again, even when it feels unnatural at first. When panic rises, you slow your breathing. When doubt floods in, you return to what you can control right now. When your thoughts try to pull you backward into regret or forward into anxiety, you anchor yourself in the present moment where action is possible. This does not eliminate difficulty, but it prevents your mind from amplifying it beyond reality. There is also strength in choosing what you allow to occupy your attention. If you constantly feed your mind negativity, comparison, and noise, it becomes restless and reactive. But when you guard your mental space, what you listen to, what you watch, who you surround yourself with, you create an environment where clarity can exist. In hell, clarity is survival. It helps you make decisions without panic, speak without desperation, and move without hesitation. A controlled mind does not mean an emotionless one. It means your emotions do not dictate your actions. Over time, you begin to trust your ability to steady yourself. Situations that once overwhelmed you no longer hijack your thinking. You respond instead of react. You pause instead of explode. You think strategically instead of catastrophizing. This calmness is not weakness. It is mastery. It allows you to conserve energy for what truly matters instead of wasting it on imagined battles. People may not see the effort behind that composure, but you will know how much work it took to build. If you fail to take ownership of your mind, circumstances will do it for you. Stress will decide your mood, fear will decide your direction, and anger will decide your words. But when you learn to lead your thoughts instead of chasing them, you take back control of your experience, no matter how harsh the environment becomes. Hell may still be around you, but it no longer lives inside you. And once your mind is steady, even the darkest path becomes navigable, because you are no longer fighting yourself while trying to move forward. Scars are more than marks on the body or reminders of a wound. They are proof that you survived what could have destroyed you, proof that you walked through fire and came out on the other side. Every scar tells a story, though most people never see the full depth of it. They see the surface, but they cannot measure the nights you stayed awake, the moments you wanted to quit, the courage it took to keep moving when everything inside you screamed to stop. Scars are evidence of endurance, and endurance cannot be faked. You had to face pain, uncertainty, and fear to earn them. When you look at your scars, you realize that each one represents a moment when you had to make a choice, to give in or to rise. Some scars are physical, the result of accidents, injuries, or battles. Others are emotional, etched into your heart by betrayal, loss, or disappointment. And still others are invisible, the marks left by the battles only you know about. The common thread between all of them is the decision to survive, to continue, to confront life rather than retreat from it. Without the struggle, there would be no scar. Without the scar, there would be no evidence of your courage. Scars also carry wisdom. They remind you of what happens when boundaries are crossed, when decisions are ignored, or when risks are underestimated. Each one is a teacher if you choose to learn. They show you the consequences of ignoring your instincts, the value of preparation, the cost of neglecting yourself, and they show you the strength you never knew you had. Scars are not only a record of pain, but also a record of adaptation, resilience, and survival, proof that you can endure hardship and still keep moving forward. There is a quiet confidence that comes with owning your scars. People who have never been burned cannot understand the way someone who has navigated fire carries themselves. You speak differently, you walk differently, and you make choices differently because you know what it means to endure suffering and still survive. There is less need to prove yourself to others because the evidence is already written on your body, in your heart, and in your actions. Your scars tell the world that you are not fragile, that you are battle-tested, and that your experience has shaped strength into your identity. Scars also transform perspective. Things that once seemed overwhelming lose their power when you remember the challenges you have already overcome. You stop fearing temporary discomfort and start respecting the lessons embedded in struggle. You understand that every scar, every wound, every failure is part of the path that made you capable of handling what comes next. They are proof that you have lived through storms, survived the fire, and grown stronger because of it. And when someone looks at you, even if they cannot see the scars inside, they can sense that you have faced life fully, endured fully, and emerged with an unshakable resilience that no easy path could ever teach. When you finally walk out of hell, you don't come back the same. The person who entered those fires, who trembled under the weight of uncertainty, fear, and pain, no longer exists. Walking through suffering changes everything. It rewires your mind, reshapes your perspective, and alters how you relate to the world. You carry a different kind of clarity now, one that only comes from having faced the worst and survived. Ordinary challenges no longer intimidate you the way they once did, because you've endured something far greater than what most people ever will. You understand, in a way that cannot be explained, that you are capable of more than you ever imagined. Coming out of hell also teaches you patience. You realize that growth is not instant, that healing takes time, and that true strength is built slowly, piece by piece, decision by decision. You begin to see life through a lens of perspective, recognizing what matters and what does not. Trivial problems that once consumed your attention now feel insignificant. Criticism that once cut deep barely scratches the surface of who you are. You learn to focus on what aligns with your purpose, what contributes to your growth, and what allows you to continue forward with integrity and resolve. The noise fades, and your priorities sharpen. There is a depth of empathy that emerges when you leave hell behind. You understand struggle in a way that mere comfort can never teach. You notice the pain in others, not because it is dramatic or visible, but because you have felt it yourself and you know the silent battles that rage inside people. This empathy makes you more patient, more compassionate, and more willing to support others without expectation. You no longer need to compete for attention or validation because you have seen what real endurance looks like, and it has nothing to do with recognition. Surviving hell also transforms your courage. You take risks differently now. You no longer fear failure in the same way because you've already walked through situations where the consequences were unimaginable. and you still moved forward. Your courage is quieter, steadier, more calculated, not reckless, but unwavering. You trust your instincts more, make decisions with confidence, and act with the understanding that the fire you survived has prepared you for whatever comes next. Challenges that would have once frozen you now become opportunities to demonstrate resilience and skill. Finally, walking out of hell leaves you with a sense of self-reliance and ownership that cannot be taken away. You realize that your strength is yours alone, and while support can be valuable, you are capable of surviving and thriving independently. Life may continue to test you. Obstacles will continue to arise, but the person who emerges from hell is different, more grounded, more focused, more disciplined, and more aware of their own power. You don't just survive life. You navigate it with precision, determination, and a confidence forged in fire. And with every step forward, you carry the unshakable truth that nothing you face ever again will have the power to break you the way hell once tried.